Wednesday, September p.m. The meeting is hereby called to order. Christine, if you could do an attendees.
Jen Tecarelli.
Yes.
Kevin Gillette.
Yes.
Tracy Manell.
Yes.
Mark Sabra. Yes. John Ward.
Yes.
Wednesday, September p.m. The meeting is hereby called to order. That's old news.
Wow, I was gonna say, I like the way you did that without moving your mouth or anything.
I know, it's magic.
Okay, sorry about that. Martha Sabra, John Ward, Eric Knowles.
Here.
Aaron Gaffman.
Yeah, here.
So welcome, everyone. This evening, we have a privilege of the floor. We have Jason Bellis with us from Larson Design Group. Jason?
Hi.
The floor is yours, my friend. What do you have to tell us?
How's everybody?
Good.
Here's your book.
Wow. Thank you. Cool.
All right, we're talking about, what are we calling it now? Had a few names.
Thank you. I don't know if this is Joe. These things would be costing us about $150 a piece, I think. Is that all? More than that?
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of pictures here.
All right. Came up with this storybook theme because I'm just a dirt pusher, right? I came up with a storybook theme from an architect in Florida. And he's like, oh, we gotta put this fancy storybook together to show him, tell him the story. So I don't know, I'm giving it a run here, but hopefully it paints a picture here. Talking about, sorry, I don't have a digital copy for you there, sir.
Yeah.
I can certainly email this over and it can be shared with folks that are joining us here digitally. But this is the 9 to 10 acre site at the end of Buck Road. You know, what is it, lease to own type format. Leanne reached out to us to kind of look at a phasing approach to try to develop the land into as many lots as possible. All right. And we took some of the sizing criteria. Buildings are not set. We're literally using a Lego here, just a block, okay, from some feedback. And we tried to lay out the system here, try to maximize the amount of space and take into consideration some of the traffic that you probably get there. On the first page, we're talking about some of the design vehicles. Some of these facilities are up in Tompkins County. Tell me to move on if you already know the backstory, right? Like up in Tompkins County, this is kind of happening right now. We think that it's going to be a similar format. However, we think with the location next to Interstate 86, I think you're going to start getting more 18-wheelers in there. So we really looked at some of the turning radiuses and accessibility based on the largest design vehicle. All right, so we're cutting ourselves here. So front page is just the overall, right? So we went to, if we go to the second page, 1A and 1B. All right, 1A is basically our recommendation, suggestion, analysis, evaluation, whatever word you want to use, for a first phase. And we would encourage first phase to be in that lower quadrant. And the second page just kind of shows you how it relates to the overall development, all right, on the front page. What we're looking at is, you know, what would the IDA need to come up with from a phased approach to get it rolling. And so we looked at one unit, right? Get a road established, get some infrastructure in, water, sewer, gas, and electric. Right? On your infrastructure, as part of the FedEx facility, a water and a sanitary stub were put across. That's what you'll see over above the word phase. Okay. On phase one, we would suggest just tying in the sanitary. You'll see as we move forward, the sanitary, electric, and gas we would run behind the building, right, to the west side of the building. Actually, I think the north of it. That's pretty close, but behind the building, and then that way, that infrastructure will serve phases 1, 2, and 3. As part of phase 3, and we'll get into that, we'd have to do a little bit more sanitary work to serve phase 4. Okay. Water, we would stub off with a new connection to the existing water main going down Buck Road. And eventually, when we come around to all 4 phases, we'll tie into that stub that you folks put in as part of the FedEx expansion. Okay. So over in the upper left-hand corner, giving you some opinions of cost. Now, they obviously right now, they're pretty big numbers, probably more so when you look at, well, geez, I'm just going to put a road in and some infrastructure. But these are numbers that we've probably been using for a few years. Probably they could even be light with the volatility that we're seeing in construction costs right now. So, you know, it's giving you an order of magnitude. Don't shoot the messenger if they come in higher. Praise me if they come in lower. All right. So that would be our recommendation for phase 1. And then really the story is, as you go through into phase 2, we would extend onto the road. We would extend onto the water, sanitary, electric. And electric, all we would really be looking to do here is put in some conduit to kind of see what your future building users are going to need, right? We are working on that other energy study. Gas, we would put a gas, we would coordinate, the service would come off to the right of way, and then we would extend the gas service, and then your future building users can connect. We did not, in past conversations, we have considered site lighting, all right, whether it be road or not. I did not include it in the costs here. Obviously, we're showing some trees. Trees are a nice thing, right? But typically, they're the first thing that's valued, engineered out. But I wanted to at least show, did not include them in the cost or remove them from the cost. So just kind of giving you a site here. So there's phase 2. You get 2 buildings. How it relates to the overall phases. And then into phase 3, we start coming around to the back corner. Okay. This one really, I struggled with whether to go all the way. Send the fire or the water main loop all the way back to Buck and continue the road. I broke it out into 4 phases. You can always combine 2 phases. But here I just wanted to give an idea of cost and show what was happening there. And then obviously we wrap all the way around to phase 4 and make the connection. Phase 4, I did include the demolition associated with the existing structures out off of Stanton Hill.
Yeah.
So it gives us some magnitude. Gives you a loop for your water, which is nice hydraulically. Really not knowing what your building users are going to come in and provide. It's basically to give build-ready sites, right? None of the costs indicate or include development costs off from the road, okay? So they do include the entrance to the road, very short piece, all right? But when you start seeing that sand type hatch pattern, we're really leaving that up to the building user. And whatever they want, it could be gravel, it could be whatever. Maybe they don't need that size for the building use that they're planning there. Basically, I'm just showing the infrastructure, road, network, and utilities. Questions?
Yeah. Sky, you're saying dropping conduits in for electric. What are you just dropping, like 4-inch conduit
Yeah,
in so you
something big
can
enough
pull whatever
that-
you want through it?
Yeah, part of the energy study, you know, we're starting to trying to get some ideas, because we have no idea what use is gonna come in. You know, we could grow, you know, plants in there, and maybe they're really high energy from a UV light. Don't know. Maybe they're gonna make cardboard boxes in there and it's really low energy use. We really don't know. That's the tough thing with this project, is we're trying to maximize the space. But yet you gotta have some infrastructure to be
So
able to do
what
it.
do you do there, Jason? Stub up a conduit, or you come in as some sort of a junction box that you can build off from?
That's what my electrical engineer chews on my ear about, is, yeah, you'd come to some central pedestal, I think he uses that term, and you would just tie off from there. For phase 4, or as part of phase 4, we would tie into that sanitary. We would do the same with electric. You know, we could bring a conduit over from the electric pedestal that we're talking about and shoot it over towards Stanton Hill.
You dropping do we have to drop a transformer in here somewhere? Is that something off a pole? I mean, don't you know until we get
Don't
there?
know until we get that far.
And we're not really sure about the power that we have over there available. We're still looking into that.
Correct.
So it might be something where you drop something pretty high potency into a transformer and then
Yeah.
feed this whole facility, depending on how.
Right, and some of the conversations that we've had is, well, could we move forward with phase 1? I think so. If you put if somebody's got the interest to just put a metal sided building, right, pre-engineered building up there, and just say, hey, let's see what the market brings, right? Then we would at least have an idea from an electrical demand perspective. That's the same story we presented last meeting, right? That's always the handcuff that we have over in this area.
The truck design,
Mhm.
the size of the truck design.
Yep.
I've been out of that for a while, so
So in your business, it would be the biggest truck that you got coming in. 53-foot box.
double bunk stretched
Yeah.
out, you know,
Yeah.
whatever you plan for, there's gonna be something 3 foot longer.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
6 foot, or they change the rules again and bump them up yet another 5 feet.
So we can get in there with this, you know, if you look in the front page, it kind of gives you some of that analysis, right? So we have a loading dock in there. We think a loading dock would be a value, especially with having that type of transportation or vehicles coming in and out. Is it the most optimal design where your truck is pulling up on the road, the access road, and then using that to back in? No. But I'm also a realistic person in Tioga County. I don't see a lot of traffic going around this loop, right? And being able to use that road to navigate certainly allows you to.
Yeah, the
Maximize
buildings
the
out front
space.
give you a little more accessibility for that type of operation, so.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of a hub for, what do you call it, Leanne?
Industrial hub.
Yeah, so it's more like a, you know, folks come in there and work their way around and grow into something bigger, hopefully.
Yep.
But it looks pretty interesting to me.
I don't know if you want to talk about some of the ideas that we talked about, some of the funding, you know, or remember how we were talking about, not so much grants or funding for it, but just how this would relate, that you get some of your payback on the investment from your leasing aspects.
So remember, we have an interested party. They've contacted me like 3 times since the last time we spoke. They're very interested in building spec type buildings in Lounsbury. So they are very interested. So we would, you know, depending on what sort of an arrangement we would make with them. Initial discussions were, you know, they would build the building, and lease the building, and we provide the infrastructure, which is why Jason looked at it this way, to show what it would be for us to provide the infrastructure for them to come in and build a building, and then lease do a land lease. That's how we structure that. With a developer.
Is that to me? Okay, you were looking at me.
No, I'm-
It's just a blank stare.
Yeah.
Go down there, you look at it.
We can do, you talking to me.
Any
So what-
questions?
What I would like to, at this point, is to be able to reach back out now to the developer and say, we've had a look at this. And maybe start to advance that conversation with them on how we start with phase one of this. If you all are interested in continuing to move that forward.
Yeah, I think you. To these folks, you might find that there's a whole lot more interest in putting the building up. You might end up putting a couple, 2 or 3. Well, it really depends on the desire at that point. I don't think anybody's gonna come in and build a building thinking they're not gonna have a second or third up pretty quick.
Yeah, and this is what these guys do.
Yeah.
So,
I imagine it comes around the building 3 or 4 before it starts making sense to the builder. Don't you think?
Yeah,
You know, the first 2 or 3, maybe even the 4th building in this complex before you start into where there's a profit on the other end of it.
we went around the loop to try to keep the costs for the IDA segmented, right? As opposed to, I mean, you could do 1 and then 4, right? And then you close off the loop, right? You could do it all in one big shebang, but I wanted to at least show it where it's segmented to give some idea of cost, so that if you do work your way around, I don't think you go 1 and 3, because it doesn't make any sense, right? But lot 4 or phase 4 with those 2 big ones, I mean, that I think then you're really biting off a nice chunk to be able to develop. So I agree with you that once you start coming around and it's really starting to come full circle, that's going to be a valuable lot.
Yeah, what starts in, is gonna kind of, in some cases, add to what comes in behind it.
and it's, the conversation that I've had with the developer has been, we're not talking about just pulling from Tioga County. There's need in Tompkins County that would come here and look at this, Rome County would come here and look at this. We're not just talking about, I'm confident that these will be filled. There is a need across the region for this type of space.
I've heard it here, and is confident all these buildings will be full.
Yep.
I think it's a great project.
Yeah, I think, the only thing to consider is, what else goes on a site like that? What else do we have in front of us or that we think is out there in the wings that would utilize this site for something different? Other than that, I agree. I think there's a need for good rental space, not necessarily retail, but light manufacturing, storage. It's almost like a bit of a cross dock situation. A drop and distribute. There's a lot of different things that could happen there.
So next step should be, I'm sorry, Leanne, what did you say? How did you want to move forward?
Yeah, so I would like to reach out to the developer, let them know the idea, review the plan, and have interest in
Right.
moving forward. And see if we can sit down and start to put an actual plan together for how we're gonna advance that. Are you okay with my sharing this with the developer?
Yep. I can get it to you in email format as well.
So I will have a meeting and come back to you next month with at least an idea on how we might go forward.
That's great.
Let's see if Eric or Aaron have any comments on that.
But you didn't see the plan, but
So Eric and Aaron, we'll get the plan out to you so you can take a look at it and let me know if you have any questions on it.
Okay, all right.
That sounds great. My only question is kind of a follow-up there is what kind of industry do we have loaded up to be able to go there, right? I mean, I think it sounds like a good idea to set something up, but has there been a study where we're looking at, we have 4 or 5 different light manufacturers that are looking for space? I mean, or are we just set a place up and hope somebody swings by?
If we build it, they will come.
I've got empty buildings all over the place with that.
Well, the point being that, I've had conversations is with the developers who are in this, this is what they do, and they are chomping at the bit to build this because they know there is a need out there, just given what they have existing facility and what kind of discussions they're having. They're assuring me that they can fill this very, very easily.
I guess that's what I'm looking for is, you know what I mean? There's a need for the project. There might be some kind of return.
You know what, Eric, I will see you tomorrow, so I'll bring you a copy of this plan. And Aaron, we will get you this package also somehow.
Awesome. Sounds good.
I'll email it to Leanne.
Okay.
I could have a hard copy though for Eric tomorrow because I have a meeting with him here.
You
You want yours,
and then
Marty?
I'll just get, yeah,
Thank you.
I'll get it when the other one
Okay,
comes.
I'll give this to Eric
In the
tomorrow.
meantime, Eric, what I'll do is I'll reach out to the developer and see if they can give me something a little more substantial than that they have a feeling that
Yeah.
will work.
They've probably got a list of 10 or 15, you know, they're already doing this. So
Yes.
they have an idea of the types of folks that are looking. We went over that a while back. I just can't remember the types of industries, but
We don't have a lot of real estate like this around. I mean, so many of the properties that are available are hundreds of thousands of square feet, you know, which
Yeah.
creates challenges. 12,000 square foot buildings, all of a sudden the scale works a little better.
Quite a few of the big ones.
Big ones, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Jason?
thank you.
I'll be back in
Thanks.
October to present wetland delineations. And hopefully an update on the end of the study.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's next, Christine? We have another privilege of the floor.
Yes,
You can introduce our speaker.
sure. So we have James Gensel with Fagan Engineers, who's overseeing the Wego Gardens project.
Actually, an analogous project like that is Ladybrook in Chemung County. It's like, well, look at Ladybrook Industrial Park. It's very similar,
Ladder?
same size. You know, that was actually built that way. It was one building and then,
Phased in.
yep, the people just came, like Coca-Cola's there, Central Recycling's there. So, we're here for O'Neill Gardens, too. So that project, actually, I just drove up there to see how it's going with the rain.
We didn't look today.
No, so we were expecting Robinson, so what we're here for is the water contract. There's 3 separate contracts for the water system. A was the, just make sure I got the right ones. A was the actual component where we're looking at the site readiness package. That was stream relocation and getting the tank site ready. B is the water main, and then C is the tank. A and B were awarded to Robinson. That was a little while ago. And C was awarded to Aquastar. So there's been some interesting relationships between multiple parties on this project.
I
So
would
we
say there's
have,
been some interesting non-relationships.
that's true.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, so the players that are involved are, well, 1, the IDA, property for the IDA, 2, home leasing, and 3, Suez. Amongst that, we have multiple contractors. So when we went through the bidding process, the two lows for the water main were Gorick and Robinson. Robinson was low by $53,000. Gorick was at 182, Robinson was 138. So I'm bringing that up just to give you some information about the amount of money that Robinson thinks is on the table, because that's everyone's thought is when you're low, you left something on the table. So as part of the project, Suez was requiring their inspection for their tubes. So when we were originally talking about this project, Fagan Engineers did the design, and then we were going to do the construction management part. The construction management part was then assigned to a home, or Suez, who assigned it to another engineering firm,
Who's the other engineer?
Hunt. So Hunt does their work for the most part. So as we got going through the process, water main construction went rather quickly, and sounds like a little too quickly. So Home Leasing contacted the IDA and said, hey, wait a second, we're seeing some stuff that we don't like. There's the main that goes up the road is in lawn area. The main that goes into the tank site goes through some asphalt area. There are two details on how to construct this, lawn areas and pavement areas. Robinson utilized the lawn area install for the entire length of the water main. The main that was going through the parking lot was then they were utilizing the native material. We did have a number of pictures that were provided to us from the Suez inspector. When you're looking at those pictures, you start seeing large rocks put into the trench. Our spec specifically says nothing larger than 4-inch aggregate. So we went, based on Home Leasing's request, we went and compaction test on the surface. The appearance of that trench is solid. We've seen a lot of equipment go across it, no issues. We did compaction testing on the surface after this was installed and backfilled with the native material, and it was acceptable. Then when we went to dig down in, that's when we found unacceptable things. Stone. We weren't able to compaction test because there was groundwater in.
Can I interrupt just a second?
Sure.
Robinson signed a contract that had a specification of 4-inch maximum aggregate in the ditch.
Correct.
Your specification for that
Correct.
ditch. Okay. Yeah, good. I'm sorry.
No, ask any questions anytime. That's no problem. So when we dug, we went back and we dug 4 test holes. 5 test holes. Each one of those we saw larger aggregate. The native material was utilized. We weren't able to compaction test because there was too much water in the trench. This is a hillside with lots of wetlands. Makes sense that when you cut through a piece of these hillsides, that water will start entering that trench. So we weren't able to compaction test. However, you know, an anecdotal test is you actually take a probe and you push it down through. There were signs that would not have met compaction test. However, we cannot prove that because when you use these devices, it uses moisture. It excites the hydrogen molecule in the water or something like that. It's not my thing, but my soils guys say that's the truth. So they weren't able to do that testing. So we have a dispute. Home Leasing will not accept the backfill as is. So the cure to this is to take the 450 feet, remove 2 to 3 feet of fill, and replace that with item 4, then compaction test it and move forward. That's the first issue. There's a second issue down in the loop area that's not
going
constructed.
clear to the pipe, or just going down 3 feet.
So at the pipe, so just to give you the detail, the pipe actually has 6 inches of item 4 material around it already. So we would go down to that material layer. You don't typically compact right on top of the pipe anyways, because if you do that, you could potentially damage it. So
That's the first I heard of the item 4 on top of the pipe.
yes, there's definitely item 4 all the way around, when we did check that. So there's imported material around the pipe bedding, or the pipe bedding around the pipe, but they utilize native material there on it. So from Home Leasing's point of view, with their funding agency, they cannot accept that. We could have an argument, we could fight back and forth. That's where we're at. We've made the recommendation to move forward with the change order. the numbers that they provided were actually decent numbers for the work to be done. Kind of going back to the numbers that are in front of you guys right now. The lineal foot cost that we're paying for 12-inch main is $85 a foot. Your estimate there for 8-inch main is $100 a foot. If that tells you anything, they price this thing aggressively. So they have very little profit in this, and that's why they will fight us, to be honest.
Who's they?
Robinson.
Robinson.
And it would cause delay in the project, which is another total issue separate that I'll let others discuss. But so we looked at the change orders, the 2 change orders, the majority of which, well, let's go through the townhouse loop. The townhouse loop has not been constructed yet. There's only been 100 feet of that installed. What out of, just make sure, 650 feet. So we have another 500 feet of water main. And this is a 6-inch water main going around the townhouse apartments. That's the terminology we're using. So it's those 2 dead-end roads. About 500 feet there, instead of utilizing the native material, which they're allowed to use. But we will get some pushback from home leasing just because this is the process. That 500 feet, we would recommend going to item 4. So that would be a change order for that. That is not an error issue on their part. That is just an issue of how can we proceed without having more arguments with home lease.
Item 4, how much in and around the pipe?
Once again, the pipe bedding's already there in our price. It would be just the next 2 feet of fill material. 2.5 feet, to be honest, because anything above what would be considered the pavement section is bought by Gorick and the home leasing side. So we're only talking about 2.5 feet of material over the pipe bedding. So that is not it. So the disputed piece would be the piece that we're talking about up at the department side. This piece would be a change order as directed for methods and means how to move forward. We have allowances available to us under these 2 contracts. That add up to $30,000. So what we're proposing to do is utilize 100% of the allowance item, which is usually directed by the engineer. We usually do that with consultation with your director or whoever you assign. But then there's a change order that would need to be authorized by you guys, which for the residual. And they broke that out into 2 pieces because there's 2 different contracts. So if you add up those 2 residuals, it's roughly $1,800 for one and $77,500 for the other.
So basically what you're saying is Robinson didn't follow the contract. They did what they wanted to do instead of what you told them to do.
Correct.
And now we're going to pay them more money to tear out what they did and do it correctly. So in the future, their best move is to do everything wrong so they can make more money.
So
This makes no sense to me.
No, and I agree, because where the failure to communicate is in our specs. The way we write it is the engineer, the resident engineer, the guy out in the field can define whether or not the compaction test is required by watching methods and means. Typically, we have someone out there 100% of the time watching every little bit of this project. The Suez direction was they only wanted the review of the pipe. That's where the incongruity is. In the way that Robinson could point to is, you, engineer, did not direct me to remove that. You, the engineer, didn't direct me to compaction testing.
All right, well, it's, I don't know if we need to a lot more about who did what, but
Right.
it's very clear. There's two things that I can't sit here and knock it off my chest is first, who's the boss on site? Who controls the site? Who is the end all?
Job boss.
Yes, who's that guy?
In theory, it's Suez. We're taking that back over.
Paying Suez, paying them $70,000 to do that. Fire.
And, all right, well, that one's, it's somewhat disputed in my mind. The second is, we have a contractor that did what they wanted instead of what they were supposed to do and what they rightfully knew was supposed to be done. So, just on record, I'll never see that happen again.
Well,
I'll never sit at this table and waste
And,
my time voting to push a contract that way. I'm just putting it out there.
I agree with you.
So I'm done with that. So get through the process, get the thing finished, but don't ever look to me to say, yes, that's your guy. Never again.
Right, I agree.
And as far as who the boss is on top of the mountain, it better be defined before we leave here tonight,
Well, we're taking
because
that
we're
over.
not gonna have any more of this.
Okay, so I don't know a lot about this, but I do know one thing, when you do a project like that, this large, this involved, there's one person calling the shots.
Right.
Coordinator. So you were saying this is Suez?
Suez got
They're the
just
water people.
Well, where it gets complicated, Marty, is that we're not talking about one project. We're talking about,
Phase projects.
we're talking
Okay.
about two projects. You've got the home leasing project going on. And there, everything associated with that. And then you've got the IDA project, which is the water.
Water and the,
So it complicates things. We would hope that we could work in partnership, but that's.
We're passing the buck around right now.
okay,
So
all right,
what-
okay,
So
thank
let's
you.
get to the bottom line and move ahead. Eric, you know where I'm going with this. I mean,
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's just, this is where you sit there and you look, everybody looks at each other and says, the only way we can move this project is to pay $30,000 to the people who screwed the project up to move it forward, because it's cheaper than litigating it and moving forward. Right, Joe? I mean, that's what my lawyer usually tells me when I have to eat $30,000, because by the time we drag everybody to court and hold the project up, it's in the long run, it's not worth it. But I don't want to work with people that can't figure out their stuff in the future. And that's kind of where my vote goes. And I'm with a couple of the other people at the table that if we're going to run a project like this, you can't do this. You lose a lot of faith from people, you know?
Right. Wasn't our contingency eaten up on things that we knew were coming already?
The contingency was eaten up, but the allowance was not, which I was not correct.
Well, some of this issue is actually Jamie's issue, because somebody should have been inspected. And if it wasn't written that it needed to be compacted to a certain extent, then somebody should have been inspecting it. I
don't disagree with you. I anticipate on these types of projects, full-time inspection, full-time resident engineer, not just an inspector, but someone that's out there to be there to direct and to answer questions and field questions as you go, and to stop things if you see something that's not. That's, to be honest, that's how we always do it. In this case, we didn't have that opportunity, but moving forward, we will have one of our guys, one of our senior resident engineers, not someone with very little experience, a guy with a lot more experience than me. Actually, he's got 10 years on me, out on the field, watching this thing get installed. But I don't like being in this position either. This is not where we usually are.
all right,
You
well,
need to recall though, let me just say one other thing. Our original contract with Fagan included inspection services. When we were told, that Suez said, you can't use your guy, you have to use our guy. Then we said, well, we don't need to pay twice for this. We're gonna pull inspection out of the Fagan contract and we're paying Suez for it. So that's why they were not on site.
yeah.
Ultimately, we came back to it and said, That's not working, and we entered into a contract again with Tioga
Right.
for construction service.
Well, let's take it a step further though. Robinson's a contractor, should have done it right. You as an engineering firm, I mean, we gotta take some of the blame as the IDA because somehow this was a failure.
We screwed up.
And we actually have to figure out how not to ever let it happen
Well,
again.
I think.
In my opinion, let
Suez
me finish
Sorry.
just before I,
blow.
yeah, that. You know, in the position you're in, there's a certain amount of trust that sits around this table that we expect to either have the right thing done or be advised to do the right thing.
Oh, sure.
So I'm willing to take a piece of this because somehow it got past me. But everybody else ought to step up to the table here because this is poor business.
Oh, yeah.
This might go on every day in somebody's world. It just never goes on in mine. This is,
And to be honest, we donated time to resolve this, just so you guys understand that.
and we appreciate
Yeah,
that.
because, we were told we wouldn't have to worry about any of the construction management. We've had to take a little bit more of an active role because of.
So does
Realistically, we
anybody-
should.
where did that direction come from? Was that from us?
It's really comes from Suez because it's, at the end of the day.
Suez makes water and not very well.
They charge them for it though.
But if they're charging 70,000, if we're paying $70,000, how often is their guy there?
So that's the other part of it. Is what Christine is attempting to track the actual time that their guy is out there and to compare actual time versus, they gave us an estimate of what they thought it would be to have their inspector out there. So she is attempting to track the time of their inspector so we can compare actual time versus what we pay.
Is there a sheet? I mean, when somebody drives up on that hill,
They're supposed to write an inspector's daily report stating every hour that they've been up there.
And who has access to that?
We've been asking for access for it. That's being provided to Suez, but not to, well, I think we have a couple of the
Yeah,
folks.
she's got
again, it's an easy fix. You drive up the hill, somebody checks you in. If you don't get checked in or you don't have access,
Well, that's the inspector is supposed to be someone of good repute. They should be documenting that. And then, when we go on site, we've been going on site for the stormwater inspection still. We tell you exactly when we've been there and you get a copy of that report submitted back to you. I
But
mean,
Suez
I think you
isn't-
guys actually have access to it that day.
Suez isn't doing that? Is that what you're saying?
It's been challenging to get those inspection reports from.
Who do you deal with at Suez?
Well, initially, we were dealing with, they had a change, to add to the story. They had a change in their leadership partway through the project. So we started out with one person, Paul McAvoy, and then it switched partway through the project to another person, Ray Montana. However, communications with Ray have been challenging. So we have agreed that instead, we are communicating with their engineer, Hunt, directly, and not with the Suez people, because that is incredibly frustrating. But Tim is a very good, reputable person, engineer working on their behalf, and we're taking everything from Tim Steve at this point.
Yeah, and Hunt has been actually quite
Very
helpful. I do not, of all the players here, that
They've
they've been doing exactly what they've been told.
so Hunt has a log of their guy being on site.
Yes.
So we should just
the
go to
last
Hunt
time-
and if they're
Yes,
contracted through Suez, we don't really need to be bothered with Suez at this point. But the guy from Hunt should be supplying us with a log because that's who ultimately is
yes.
logging the hours,
That's who we
correct?
got it from, what we have got, we got from Tim.
And then actually from here on out, we've been documenting as well, because we're out there.
Okay.
You guys are making me want to go to Suez tonight.
Yeah.
Have some words, Joe.
I
Benny known that.
discontinued communication with
We
Ray
don't have
Montana.
good luck with Suez.
I want to go see Ray Montana right
Now,
now.
the only positive thing,
Who's on the project from Hunt? Which engineer?
Who's on the project, what, Eric?
Who's on the project for Hunt? Which engineer?
Tim Steve.
Okay. He's a good guy.
yep,
All right, so we're done picking at this. Can we figure out
What
how to
we're gonna
get
look
from
for
here to
is-
the next?
Yes, and an approval for the change orders and the total amount of 9,200.
Or something like that. I don't have, I haven't broken out. CO number 2 is 1,813. CO 3 is 7,459.
So we'll do them in separately, change order 1 and change order 2.
Aaron, you got any comments?
No, it just pisses me off. How's that?
I'm good. I'm right there with you.
Was that Aaron or was that Tracy?
All right, so we're making a motion to make these change orders. I'll make the motion to accept the change orders as stated.
How about a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You ever pissed off?
Now, can I mitigate this a little bit with a little additional discussion? So the Suez credit was originally supposed to be 109,000. It's turning out that it's gonna be
260 to 270,000.
Why?
Because again, working with the local people, right? They didn't understand entirely what we were entitled to. So I had the opportunity to speak with a corporate person who's actually in charge of making those refunds available. We went through the entire contract. In the end, we're entitled to closer to between 260 and 270,000 in refunds back from Suez. Keeping in mind, the water hydrants will be, cost for the water hydrants and installation will be refunded as soon as they're online. But the rest of it will be refunded 1 year after everything's in service. So it won't be an immediate refund, but 1 year later, we'll be entitled to the balance of that 270,000.
Okay.
So the net cost to the IDA is potentially $100,000 less than what we originally estimated.
Don't tell us all this good news at once.
You know,
Less than that.
and I'll wait to see it when it comes because
Yeah.
we've heard different stories from Suez, so.
It's just crazy. I mean, you have people that, the same organization whiffing that bad.
So I got another question. There's still some work that Robinson is supposed to do on this job that they have. Last meeting, you told us that they weren't coming back and they were
Well, we
waiting.
got that sorted out, right?
That's
So we're
sorted.
good?
That's sorted out.
Because I'm of the
They
opinion we
knew you
shouldn't
were
be giving
mad
them any
and
more
they
work.
changed their mind. and
They
came back.
should have been out there today, but the rain called them off.
Everything was lined up, all inspectors, everybody was gonna be there today.
There's gonna be more inspectors on this project.
Well, it's supposed to stop raining tonight, so of
So
course it'll be a mud pit
I
tomorrow.
just went up there, it was not the nicest.
Yeah, I bet. All right.
So in the remaining work that they have to do, once they come in for our contractors, now they're subbing on the Aquasport contract, not having to do with us, but they're still on site doing that work. But for our work, to do the apartment and the townhouse loop,
It should only take about a week. Maybe it depends on, obviously, the weather, and if there's dewatering issues, but it should only take about a week.
Okay.
And we will be out there, I promise you.
and then our part on the water main is done. And they'll have the other contract with statewide Aquasport for the tank work. That's a whole nother thing.
Robinson involved with that?
Robinson's involved with it, they're southern up there.
Yeah, and actually, that work is, to be honest, that work is looking great. The stream restoration work that they did, the box culverts, they actually saved us some money on that piece. We haven't gone through all that, but there was a number of elements there that went rather well. So I don't want to just paint the negative brush here.
They did a
You
great job.
don't
on
need to,
stream.
I'll do it. You're irritating me all over the place.
Any other questions, folks?
Follow the contract. Damn.
And I don't know, do we know the number for electric and SCADA already?
Work that's into Tim and
What Tim's got?
yes.
Because that, so you all know, that's a piece that's missing yet. That's gonna be the revision to our developer agreement with Suez. We talked about this before. Do you want me to go through it again? No?
I don't.
There's another number coming that we're gonna have to deal with.
And what we'll be doing is updating, I don't know if you've shared this with them, but the whole expenses and credits.
In the end, whether you believe it or not, we're gonna come right in close to what we said initially.
Which with 2019 numbers versus 2021 construction actually is really good. I mean, the numbers they gave us for the unit pricing, $45 for 6-inch pipe, 85 for 12-inch. Those were good, great numbers. So now we know why, but if you take these numbers and you apply it to that, we're still ahead of the game versus the next lowest bidder. That's why I brought that up at the beginning. Not to,
Okay, I'm good.
thank you guys for your time.
Thank you
But
so
the
much.
next lowest bidder, we might be further along in the project.
Yeah, to be honest, it would have been simpler.
The rain would have been coming down on top of finished pipe,
Yeah, no.
something like that.
I totally agree. The problem we have though is awarding to someone other than by the price is really tough when you
Oh,
come
yeah.
into you guys'
Uh-huh.
municipal. I'm able to do that in private development all the time. I've a couple times I've been
That's
able
where
to
you
get
come in.
rid of the low bidder, and it's difficult because the
How would we have-
lawyers get involved.
How would we have caught the fact that Robinson was gonna skimp on the fill and the compaction in our process, so it doesn't happen again? How would we have noticed that? Sitting around this table, how would we have noticed that?
You wouldn't unless
So
unless the
how-
inspector out there was watching for that.
But you wouldn't know at the initial bids. point.
Oh, no, there's no
You don't have
way.
any way to know at the initial bids. The initial point that you're looking at bids, you don't have any way to know that.
The issue was, is that we got that huge number that we knew we were stuck paying. So we tried to make an adjustment.
All right.
I mean, the one way.
What, I hate to repeat mistakes, so
No, the one way you
I'm a
could have done it
one-and-done
is
guy.
instead of so in our documents, we do give the resident engineer leeway to determine how often to test.
Hmm.
And that's usually because, you don't want to waste your money because you're paying for that testing. That comes out of your pocket as well. We don't always go every 50 feet. We're going to be on this one. So I'm gonna bring my own density testing equipment. You're not gonna be paying for that because I'm gonna have my guy who can do both. So you don't have to pay a separate testing agency to do it. So that's part of that process.
We're still stuck paying $70,000 of supervision that's not being supervised.
Unless we can show proof that they're not up there and then they're.
Well, the documentation here going forward the best we can, and then we'll address that after. the fact.
Right.
Correct.
It goes back to who sold the rights to the water in this town? I think
In
the
the
first
village.
meeting ever, I asked that same question. I still don't have a name. Whoever that guy is caused a bunch of heartache and discontent.
Had a similar discussion with our compadre.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
This is Hunt out of Elmira.
Where's that?
Actually, of course, it's me.
My son,
Elmira,
my son works for him.
Aaron,
Uh-oh.
Aaron, did you have something?
No, they're pretty solid. We work with them. They're pretty good.
Yeah, no, we have no issue with them whatsoever.
I only asked because my son works for them.
For Hunt?
conflict of
That's
interest
not
there.
intense.
What's that?
Thank goodness for Tim. It's been.
A
Yeah,
lot of good things were said about them.
Tim's my neighbor too, so I can,
Go have a beer with him.
thank you, guys.
Thank
All right.
Thank
you.
you.
Moving along. I'm seeking a motion to approve the August minutes, please.
Motion.
Thanks, John. How about a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to the financials. Aaron or John, do you have any comments?
Looks good to me.
That's great.
I have one quick question. The railroad money got put into other this month, was that?
We put them all under.
I can move it over to freight.
Was it
Thank
just
you.
regular freight?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification.
Fine.
Thanks, Sean.
How about a motion to acknowledge the financials, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks,
second it.
John. Thanks, Tracy. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Moving along, we have Leanne Tinney's Economic Development Planning Update.
I'll just make it brief, 2 things tonight. Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services Housing Project on Temple and Liberty Street continues to move forward. The developer, INHS, made presentation to the Village Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals, made sketch plan review with both organizations. There's some questions asked and a few modifications coming, but all in all, it looks pretty good. They'll go now to the County Planning Board for their recommendation on September 15th, I believe. Then to the Village Planning Board on September 28th, and ultimately the ZBA, responsible for final approvals on September 29th. So that continues to move forward. The other, I just wanted to bring up on the workforce education coordinator position. We have interviews scheduled to fill that position tomorrow. We had 3 candidates, and before we could get to the interview process, 2 of them took other jobs. So we're down to 1 candidate, and we're calling somebody else in that had applied as well. So we're talking to 2 people tomorrow on that. Hopefully that'll move forward. We have a resolution in for the county for the September meeting, also for the hire of a part-time person to replace, not replace Teresa, but Brittany's taken on the land bank director position. We're bringing in a part-time person to as assistants in the office. Lots of other stuff going on, but it's been a long meeting already, so we'll keep it at that.
We're tired already.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leanne. Christine, do you want to cover Owego Gardens too? Or
Well,
what do you want to say about that? We've
Step right
said,
up
we've
to
said
that,
enough
huh?
about that, haven't we?
yeah, we've been over it all, but we did kind of fill in the spreadsheet to reflect changes. Okay. So these are the 2 new change orders that you just approved. You said total on contract A contingencies are gone. And the Suez credit is higher than they used to be. At the end, still waiting for any other change orders due to the electrical, SCADA, et cetera, from Suez requirement. To see where this really truly lays at the end of it. So that's all for Owego Gardens too.
Well, thanks. Thanks for being such a good mind reader, including all those numbers in there ahead of time.
Well, actually, Leanne updated that for us. I'll be on. All right. So
Committee reports.
So we have no committee reports. The governance committee's been getting together to go over the annual employee evaluation, and we'll be discussing that with you in executive session. So onward, it's a really short agenda. We have Owego Gardens 2 and Robinson reporting monthly to me their sales tax exemption usage and are well within their authorized limits. The school and village pilot invoices were distributed. And the monkey run FEMA, the project has been completed. We paid JB's excavation. Now it's just a matter of final reporting and submitting. They actually paid us up front, and JB's bid came in slightly lower than the anticipated award. So what will actually happen is we'll be refunding the federal and the state shared portions that we did not use. And then we've been looking forward to compiling a application for the Richford Railroad fix. They have yet still to actually open the application portal and provide those. They keep kind of pushing it along, but when it's available, we'll get on that.
Thank you.
That's all.
I'm seeking a motion to move into executive session, please.
Make that motion.
Thanks, Kevin. How about a second?
Second.
Okay,
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed?
thank you. Let me just.
Leanne, you had nothing to address in executive?